Welcome, Warriors, back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2 and the 1% Club. I'm moving over a little bit to talk to you guys more. Hope you guys are doing well on this fine morning. And this is July 14th, 2022. Hope everything is according to plan. I see more and more nice videos out there, good videos talking about retention, and hope we're kind of growing with all this information that we give out there. I think it's wonderful to see so many men especially who are kind of standing up, whether it's the MGTOW type movement or everything else. You know, I had an interaction yesterday with a young lady as well who, for whatever reason, you know, feels like that, she is can just boss people around. And you just have to stand up and basically just say, no, you don't have to be it in an abusive way, but I think you got to show a command. And I think this is one of the things, being on the plan and being on the retention that we're on allows you to do that a lot more. And this way, what you can do is have a lot more confidence. And I think it's important to have this level of confidence, because the confidence level is where you end up kind of, showing people that you're not going to put up with all kinds of nonsense and things like that too. So once again, it's always important to kind of see that and kind of see where we're at with things and working that way. So thank you so much, guys, for the subscriptions, comments. Subscriptions, we're over 425 now and keep going, and I'm striving for 500 first, and then we'll try to hit 1,000 and kind of move up as time goes on. Please share with other people. Please go ahead and kind of indicate, what you like to talk about. I've gotten so many good comments of late that now I have a whole list for the next week and a half, I think, 2 weeks of ideas. Thank you so much for comments from Ferrick. I hope I said that right. You didn't correct me, so I'm guessing I'm okay with that. So thank you. And he's got a few other questions that I want to also go ahead and touch base with and get as well as we go through that. And then also we have something is Alvin, thank you for your comments. Curvy Shine sent up 2-3 great comments that I'm going to kind of focus on as we go through the week. Can You Dig It did a nice comment last night, so I want to kind of focus on that. And also we got a new subscriber, and oh man, I have forgotten, but thank you for all the new subscribers. I'll have to go back and look at the name. I don't want to kind of embarrass the person if I mispronounce the name. So I appreciate all the new subscribers, all the people coming in, and all the comments you guys are making throughout, and please continue to do so, and I'll try to get to as many of these as I can and kind of go through things as we're going along. So we're going to talk today about a topic that I saw and a few people have talked about as well, and this is called real pleasure as compared to fake pleasure. It's a very interesting type of concept, so let's kind of get into this a little bit. Now, the whole idea is that as you're on this plan, and we've talked about how this plan is not, the best and not easiest plan in the world. It's not easy to go through all these days, and I think I'm at 779 or 69. I think it's 69. 769. And I'm also at trying to kind of now 7 or 8 days of monk mode, and we're kind of moving back in that direction. And moving up, trying to get to that next goal of 250 with I just finished with monk mode. But the thing that we need to look at when we see all this is the fact of the benefits of retention. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but the idea that you're really trying to go against the grain of all what the world is telling us. And the world is telling us that we have to have short-term pleasure. Now, this is the thing that's been around for, I don't know, since I've been born. I don't know if it started back when I was born in the 1960s, or it's just something that kind of came around. But a lot of people have been conditioned to want the short-term pleasures. And and it's easy to see, not only the area of retention, of course, but obviously in areas of technology and health and all these type of things as well. It kind of promotes the idea of taking the shortcut and not really trying to kind of follow through and have distance, okay? It's really important to kind of look at that and say, okay, what is the long-term type of thing? What is the long-term type of goal? And how do I get there? And so a lot of people in their minds, really have short-term satisfaction in their heads. And this is a killer. This is a killer. Because in many regards, life is not short-term. Life looks like it's short-term. People have this idea, well, I can only live once. And we have all these songs, and even though I love Sinatra, a lot of these songs kind of talk about that whole me generation and short-lived, and I have to do it my way, and all this kind of stuff that, even though it's a great song, the idea is not so great. The idea is that you're doing it God's way. And I think the idea is that you don't really want to say, okay, this is short-term. I'm going to get the short-term pleasure. And we've seen this glamorized in Hollywood, all kinds of places over the years, that it's a short-term type of game, right? Short-term types of things in movies like The Godfather way back in the 70s, and short-term mafia films where people see all the glamour, but they don't see really what that life is all about, or they don't see the fact that when you have people on television like the police shows, where you've had, people who, they glamorize it, but they don't show the person in prison for all these years and that sort of thing. And so you don't see the actual long-term types of consequences that happen. And the same thing is happening with our sexual revolution again. We have a lot of young people who are just, in my mind, misguided. Not that they're bad people. I don't think anybody's a bad person. I think there's always evil spirits that get into people. And I think it makes them do things, and they don't see it, they don't control it, or they get taken over by it. But I think you have to be careful about, you can't just say people are evil. I don't think people are evil. I think these evil spirits, that's a whole different type of thing. And I think they go in there. But I think the misguided people who have been kind of taught certain things, and we're victims of habit. We learn things. And people learn short-term types of pleasure. That's why you have a lot of people who have the short-term, like body counts. They don't mind sleeping with as many people as they can, until they get to the point where they're in their mid-20s, late 20s, and now they're trying to have a relationship, and they've slept with 100 or 1,000 people, and all of a sudden now you can't have any kind of relationship at all. And now a lot of people are single, and they're alone. And a lot of people, taking pills and depression, a lot of anxiety pills for people, and they're seeing psychiatrists and things like that, when in a sense the biggest issue was that they're taught the wrong thing. And I think when you talk about this, this whole idea of people being liberated, going back to the feminist movements and all these type of things that were through there, the danger, there's always good and bad to things, but the danger that's happened is a lot of people have been kind of misguided with this whole idea that I can do anything I want and there's no consequences. See, that's the whole idea here that we're trying to talk about. That people saying, well, I can do what I want, but no consequences. Well, there are consequences. There are consequences with sleeping people, no matter if you think there isn't or not. There's consequences with you, and it's certainly with your energy, and there's certainly things doing it. So the bottom line really is that all this short-term pleasure really is fake pleasure. It's not really real. It may be good for a few minutes, especially when it comes to looking at pictures on Instagram or images, things like that. These things are really not real. This is kind of made up types of things, especially to draw people in. And all you gotta do is look at commercialized things out there that know they're trying to get your money. They're trying to get you to buy something, or to buy into something, right? And if you see all that and you're doing all that, all of a sudden you're saying, okay, this is the way it is. People are flocking to this, and this is this whole idea of the, red pill and blue matrix and red matrix, right? A lot of people have been under a blue matrix that this is the way that life should be. You should release your energy anytime you want, and all this kind of stuff. And we'll talk about later, though, that obviously it's, there's a certain times to do that, but you're not doing it 5-6 times a day like some people do, and they're having dysfunctions and things like that as they go through, as they do this more and more. But that whole short-term fake pleasure is with us all the time. Technology is the same way. You look at the phone. People can't get off the phone for more than 4 or 5 minutes to do anything. They go back there and they have to look at their phone all the time. And I think this hurts people, in my opinion. Hurts people when they're sleeping, hurts people during the day with conversations. But once again, it's a short-term types of fixes. It's that dopamine level, things that go up because they see something quickly, not that they're waiting long-term. And I think this is the whole idea. And I think God's purpose, especially when it comes to retention and things that we're talking about, is more of a long-term type of thing, not a short-term. And getting satisfaction long-term for being, a person who, has discipline, has values, has morals, has some sort of character background with them, so they're not falling for every kind of thing that comes along. And now they're looking for a short-term satisfaction here, a short-term types of things here, gratification here, sleeping with this person, sleeping with that person, and all of a sudden now you're really messed up. I think you lose your soul, but I think that from a physical standpoint, obviously now you're sitting there with, so many different partners, and it's very difficult not to change. It's very difficult to change all that and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and settle down with one person now, and that's it. And that's how you build that lust and things that are in there. So I think as you look at this whole thing, it's important to realize that as you go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to kind of look at my goals, I'm going to see if I could try to accomplish goals, that I'm looking for short-term and long-term type goals. And as you see this, now you're saying, okay, what is the long-term gratification I'm getting out of this, right? Is this short-term? Is it something that I can build on and I can grow with? That's why discipline is so hard for 90% of the people in the world. They look at trying to say, how can I go ahead and build, myself and work out and build a physique that I want, but it takes time. It's taken me time to kind of get closer to the point that I'm looking at, because part of it was the whole idea of not only drinking water and doing different things, but kind of focusing on more of a long-term type of thing. And sometimes that takes time to do. So when you're looking at this, I think that when we look at the long-term and short-term type of thing, you're really kind of looking at not kind of taking the shortcut, but trying to say, okay, what is the long-term type of goal and plan that I have? And so this way, you're also not going to be anxious, which is one of the benefits of retention as well. You're not going to be anxious, you're not going to be nervous and scared if you're not accomplishing your goal right away. It's going to take a little time to accomplish it, but as you do that, you're going to be able to kind of focus on, being able to say, okay, I can do this. It'll take a little time, but I can do this, and I'll focus on this as I go through. So I think it's really important to kind of realize and say, okay, how can I go ahead and look at, achieving my goals, being able to kind of focus on things and doing things in the long term. So when we're talking about real pleasure compared to fake pleasure, the real pleasure comes from the idea that you are sacrificing and you're building things. If you get something for free, and this is what we talk about even when losing energy, when you're getting something for free, you really don't value it. You're really not trying to value what you have. And so now you take it for granted, and you don't really kind of put the type of effort into it because you realize it came free. And this is why it's very difficult to have any sort of good feelings long term about something you get for free. I don't care if it's having sex with somebody. I don't care if it's going ahead and getting something, stealing something, or doing something that you're going to take advantage of somebody to get something. All those things come back to kind of bite you in the butt, because you're basically kind of realizing in your subconscious, and I think God is sitting there, it's giving you messages, telling you things, whether you listen to them or not, that's up to you. I mean, I certainly would advocate you should listen to them all the time, but some people don't. But the idea is that your body is telling you, your mind is telling you that there's something's wrong here. Now you may deaden it, and some people get very cold hearts, just like Pharaoh did, right, with Moses. That you harden, God hardens the heart after a while. You don't ever want to be in that situation, because now you have no clue what's happening, and you're heading for a Sodom and Gomorrah, or Roman Empire type of ending, which is what happens with a lot of dynasties that we talk about. But the bottom line really is you want to make sure that you're in the God's purpose. You're trying to make sure that you're focusing on goals, that you're looking at the long term, and you're realizing this journey is going to be a lifetime type of thing. The benefits are not going to come, immediately. They will come, and they'll get better and better as time goes on. But it's not something that you're going to say, okay, I'm doing this because I want to, get a lot more women. If you're a woman, a lot more men. You're not doing that because of that. You're doing this because your lifestyle change over time will be a better benefit. And I think that's one of the keys in looking at this, is that you're not looking for that real pleasure comes from the fact that you are doing things in the right way. You are basically kind of following God's plan. You're in God's law. You're basically working towards achieving positive type of things. And you're focusing really on those things that, are things that, you should be focusing on. And I think that's where we kind of go into the whole idea of, well, what is really the real pleasure? The real pleasure is the fact that you have happiness within yourself. And I don't care what they're talking about on the outside. You can talk about money, you can talk about other types of things. I know people who have lots of money who are very unhappy all the time. In fact, it creates more problems for them than they had before. So the real pleasure comes from the inner peace, the happiness you come, knowing that you're on the right track, knowing that God is with you, knowing that you're doing the things that you should be doing, especially when it comes to retention and celibacy and brahmacharya, sophism, all those type of things. You can determine any way you want to. That you're basically kind of submitting yourself and sacrificing yourself for discipline, and you're becoming the best person you can become. But it takes work. It's not something that's going to come overnight, and I think you sometimes do. It took me 47 years approximately to kind of figure out how to do this long streak, and that's not something that it took a long time and battling with this, and this is why the battle is so difficult, because it's not a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing. All right, guys, anyway, so once again, real pleasure comes from the happiness, the joy that you have inside, because you're becoming the person that God wants you to become. All this other kind of stuff on the outside, I think, is done by the evil one to just kind of confuse you, trap you, kind of tempt you into getting away from God. And I think it's important to realize that, and don't go for the fake pleasures you see, but go for the real pleasures. All right, guys, July 14th, 2022. Hope you guys have a great day and continue to battle on.